The Mitsubishi A6M-0 was the primary Imperial Japanese Navy fighter aircraft during World War II. It was essentially superior to all Allied fighters from its introduction in mid-1940 through late 1942, and was still quite formidable until mid-1943. This was especially heightened by the fact that many of the pilots who flew it at that time were quite experienced. It had a very long flight range, better than the German Messerschmitt Bf 109, and high levels of agility, as it could outmaneuver the British Spitfire. It also had substantial firepower, which included two 20mm autocannons that dealt significantly more damage than the 12.7mm machine guns of the F-4F Wildcat, the primary American carrier-based fighter aircraft until mid-1943. However, it was not very durable. All of these characteristics reflected the Japanese military philosophy during this stage of the war that emphasized offensive operations. During this time, American pilots did everything possible to avoid engaging Zeros in air-to-air combat that required turning, instead waiting to attack until they had a height or speed advantage. They would then fly past the Zeros, hoping to score enough hits during that pass to damage or destroy them given their lack of durability, and then wait until another height or speed advantage presented itself. For instance, in April 1942, 36 Zeros took on about 60 British fighter aircraft over what is now Sri Lanka. Though admittedly many of their aircraft in the engagement were obsolete, the British lost 27 aircraft as compared to only 1 Zero for the Japanese. On June 4, 1942, Japanese forces conducted a bombing raid against an American base at Dutch Harbor, Alaska, as part of the larger 1942 to 1943 Aleutian Islands campaign. Petty Officer Tadayoshi Koga took part in the raid, with his Zero catching anti-aircraft fire that damaged his fuel lines. Japanese leadership had designated Akutan Island, about 25 miles away from Dutch Harbor, as a location where pilots with damaged aircraft could land and then be picked up by their submarines. Koga attempted to set his plane down there on a stretch of ground that appeared to be a grassy field but was actually a muddy bog. His landing gear caught the muck and caused the plane to flip over nearly intact, with the marshy terrain helping to somewhat cushion it and prevent damage to it. Japanese forces did not attempt to destroy or recover his downed aircraft, and he died instantly, so it remained on the island in a repairable state. The Zero was discovered by a PBY Catalina on July 10, 1942, that was returning to Dutch Harbor from a patrol and had lost its course. It was difficult to salvage the Zero from the deep muck, especially since the wings could not be separated from the fuselage, as was common with American aircraft at the time, but it was eventually retrieved and shipped across the Pacific, arriving in Seattle on August 1st. It became known as the Akutan Zero, the Aleutian Zero, or Koga's Zero. Light repairs were made to it, and it was ready to fly again by September 20th. The capabilities of and information about the Zero were still largely unknown by the Allies when the Akutan Zero was captured, and it was the first such aircraft taken by American forces that could be restored to flying condition and tested in the US. It's very likely that its capture was unknown to Japanese forces. 24 test flights were made with the Akutan Zero between September 20th and October 15th, 1942. Test flights of the Zero identified its weaknesses, one of which was that the aircraft became much more difficult to maneuver at speeds above 230 miles or 370 kilometers per hour, and led to a new strategy for Allied fighters to escape pursuit by it, that being going into a steep vertical dive, followed by harshly rolling the plane to the right. Such tactics were soon sent to frontline pilots in the Pacific Theater. The Akutan Zero took part in mock dogfights with Allied aircraft and was used in such situations to train new American pilots. It was also tested against the best American fighters of the time, with this experience being used to develop ideal tactics for combating the Zero for each model of fighter. Finally, it underwent wind tunnel testing in 1943. The fourth-ranking Marine Corps ace of World War II, Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Walsh, who shot down 21 enemy aircraft during it, including 17 Zeros, said that the information gained from the Akutan Zero testing saved his life several times. The development of the F-6F Hellcat, the main American carrier-based fighter from mid-1943 onward, was lightly refined based upon information gained from the Akutan Zero. The combination of the introduction of the F-6F and the F-4U Corsair in early to mid-1943, both of which could mostly outperform the Zero, tactics learned from the Akutan Zero, and the loss of many experienced Japanese pilots helped to turn the tide of the air war in the Pacific. Japanese military historian Masataki Okumiya said that the capture of the Akutan Zero was as devastating to Japanese forces in the Pacific Theater of the war as their loss in the Battle of Midway. There is some contention that such an effect is overstated because the thatch weave tactic of fighting the Zero had already been developed and information about its capabilities was already being informally diffused among Allied pilots from those who fought it, but most accounts agree that its discovery was of great importance and benefit to Allied forces.